This is Orange Nation Overtime with Steve Infanti and Paulie Scibilia.
Welcome in Orange Nation Overtime, everyone, alongside Paulie Scibilia. I'm Steve Infanti. We have made it to Friday, and there was some news regarding the SU men's basketball schedule after we left the air yesterday. The Syracuse-St. John's game now has a date. John Rothstein from CBS Sports, the first to report that the game will be played November 15th. That's a Sunday at Madison Square Garden. It happens to be the same day as Bills-Jets in New York. So I'm considering potentially doing both, Paulie.
That would be fun. You should
can make it happen.
You definitely should.
I was going to take my daughter to the Jets game, and then and maybe we'll catch some basketball that night. What do you make of this game, though? The way that it falls, we talked about how Jerry was spacing out these marquee games. The way it stands now, with St. John's being slotted into November 15th, that means they're arguably their two toughest games. Indiana and St. John's are now back-to-back. They are 6 days apart, one on November 9th and now one on November 15th, but they are back-to-back, Paul.
Yeah, I like it. It's okay if it's not like that tournament they were in last year where you had to play day after day. This gives you a week to work on things, take it slow, figure out game plan for that team. So you got a week to game plan for Rick Pitino and St. John's.
And the rest are spaced out. So after the St. John's game on the 15th, they've got 2+ weeks with Cornell, Lafayette, Albany to get ready for Oklahoma. Then another 2 weeks plus, 2.5 weeks really to get ready for Providence. They've got Colgate, Mercyhurst, Canisius before the Providence game. And then Rutgers, they don't play until February 6th, which falls right in the thick of the ACC schedule. I saw a report that the two teams just could not find a date that worked for both them and the arena in November or December, so they pushed the game to February. In terms of football, we're taking next week off, and then when we come back, man, it's we're off and running, right? And it does feel like we're getting close to the start of the season. The first scrimmage is tomorrow behind closed doors up on the SU Hill. What are you most looking forward to with this season, Paulie? Bouncing back here from a 3-9 campaign.
I'm just excited for the season because I don't know anything, and it's just all the question marks. Is Angeli as good as what we saw? Is there a running game? Are the receivers good? Is everybody's praising the defensive backfield? Are they going to hold up? There's so much to look forward to this year. And can they get to a bowl game?
Yeah, there is a lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation heading into this year. We asked a lot of those questions that you just mentioned, Paulie, to Javon Edmonds, who does a great job covering Syracuse football for Syracuse.com. And we let him off by just asking him for his overall observations of what he's noticed from camp so far here about 2 weeks in.
I think if there's two things I'm walking away from so far through camp, it's this new defense under Vince Karras and the backup quarterbacks, right? I think when you look at last year's room compared to this year's room, it kind of was impossible for last year's group of backups to be on par with these guys. Danny Lauder has started, Malachi Nelson has started, Amari Odom's a all-conference player, right? It was impossible for Ricky Collins, Luke Carney, and Joe Flaherty to follow that up, right? I think they've got so many options. And they're going to be so multiple with the formations and the schemes they put out there, just from what this coaching staff brings over, but also you got a big piece on the D-line and Dylan Fontes to shore some things up. You got a guy in Keyshawn Johnson who terrorizes defensive tackles. And, this secondary, I truly do believe is going to be top 5 at worst in the ACC. Chris Peel got a preseason All-American vote from me. To be honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked if Demetri Samuel winds up getting at least a second-team All-ACC vote from me at the end of the year. So I think between those two things, I'm impressed by what I'm seeing so far.
All right, Javon, let's start with the defense just to follow up here. And, there was certainly a lot of improvement that needed to be made on both sides of the ball. Let's talk about the defense. Last year, they were, I believe, worst among all Power 4 schools in terms of scoring defense. They were third worst among Power 4 schools in terms of yards given up, ahead of only Rutgers and Boston College. So I think we all agree they're going to be better this year. How much better? What is realistic in your mind, Javon, in terms of making a leap so that not only is the defense not a liability, but do you think the defense could actually be a strength of the team this year?
Yeah, when you talk to the coaches and the players, they've got aspirations of being top 10 in the country. I think that's a big leap from 120 something. So I won't go that far. But again, when you got a secondary that's that good, and you got some talented coaches up front that are going to be able to scheme ways for their linemen to get home, I truly do believe. What are we at? 68 teams in the Power Four now. No lower than that in the country. I just don't think this year's team is as bad as last year's, right? I think this is a team that absolutely can go bowling. And I think Fran alluded to this. We've got a defensive coordinator with experience that actually is going to have answers to the tests this year, right? And that's no knock on E-Rob. Great guy. But he's been a defensive line coach his whole career, still, relatively young in that coordinator role. That's not the case with Vince Karras. This is a guy who's been around defense his whole life, right? So I think from that alone, the unit's going to be better.
In terms of the casual fan, for instance, what's the casual fan going to notice about the defense this year? Seems like it's a little bit more of an aggressive style. I mean, what's the casual fan going to notice? In September when they see this team play for the first or second time.
It's going to be hard to pass the ball on them. It's either because one of two things is going to happen. Either that secondary is going to lead to some coverage sacks, or that front seven is going to lead to some errant throws to a very talented secondary. I think that's going to be the strength of this defense. I don't know what they're going to do stopping the run, but I know it's not going to be easy to pass against them. And football is such a passing game now, especially in college, unless, you come up against the wing T or triple option like the service academies. It's so much passing now. So that's going to go a long way for Syracuse.
On the other side of the ball, Javon, you talked about the quarterback position and that they've upgraded the backups, and that's great. But the hope is that you never have to dip into that pool, right? The hope is that Steve Angeli stays healthy and stays upright for the entire year. We saw glimpses of what he could be last year. 2.5 games, he was lights out. He led the country in passing yards after that fourth game, and then we haven't seen him since. What's a realistic expectation for his production here in 2026?
So with Steve, I think it's going to be a mental thing before we see him reach like his 100% potential. I think he's at 100% health, and if he's not there already, he'll be there by New Hampshire. I think with Steve, the first time he gets hit and bounces up from it, something's going to click like, oh man, yeah, I am healthy. Let's go let it rip. And a second year in Jeff Nixon's offense with some receivers coached by Josh Gaddis. And by the way, these guys have size. Cole Weaver's a big dude. Elijah Moore's a big dude. Zamondre Merriweather is a very talented, compact style receiver. Boobie Johnson's only going to be better in year two. Tyshawn Russell is a headache to deal with. Umari Hatcher has the potential to be a playmaker. So he's got so many options at the receiver spot and such a rapport with Jeff Nixon. When Steve gets hit and bounces, just gets up and realizes, oh, man, I'm healthy and it's time to let this thing rip, it's going to be a scary sight for opposing defenses.
Juan Castillo has been brought in to coach the offensive line. How much of a difference can a coach make at that position? Because a lot of the guys are, a lot of familiar faces back, right? And you hope that they've gotten better, and you hope you're able to develop them. How much of a difference can Juan Castillo make with that group?
Yeah, I would argue the heavies are the ones that need coaching the most, because they're the guys that you're really recruiting for size and athleticism, and then you teach them technique. And that is what Juan Castillo is all about. This is a guy who falls asleep in his office, doesn't go home in the summer. I mean, the guy coached the Division II program in the 90s and sent 4 of those offensive linemen to the NFL. And I'm not talking practice squad, preseason All-Americans. I'm talking guys who went on to start All-Pro for the Philadelphia Eagles, Green Bay Packers Hall of Famers, starters for those John Gruden, Tony Dungy Buccaneers teams. So he transforms guys. Deion Dawkins told Fran Brown, hey, that guy helped me make $50 million. You might want to hire him. Travion Mack and Joe Cruz interviewed Juan Castillo as part of, Fran's process for bringing on the new coaching staff. They left that interview and told Fran, you're not going to find anyone better than him. So the reviews on Juan Castillo are extremely and overwhelmingly positive. He's got the 29-year track record in the NFL that says he knows what he's doing. Travion Mack and Olu Akinshilo have earned their orange jerseys in practice so far. Joe Cruz' transition to center is looking pretty seamless from what I've seen. So I think that unit is going to have a lot to look forward to because they have such a talent developer as their position coach.
We've talked about the quarterbacks. We talked about the pass catchers. We talked about the O-line. We haven't talked a lot about the running backs. And as I said, that there are a lot of familiar faces back on the O-line, a lot of new faces in that running back room. What do you make of the running backs? And do you think that group, production-wise, will take a step forward this year? Having a healthy Steve Angeli should help, right?
Yes, that should help. Having an offensive line that's going to be able to create some running lanes is going to help even more. And having a position coach and Dennis Thomas, who, again, this is another guy who produces talent. Kyle Monangai, Jonathan Taylor, Syracuse's very own LaQuinn Allen, right? When you've got that leading your room now, it's automatically going to be better. I was talking about the orange jerseys. Jawan Johnson, the transfer from LSU, who's played just about every position there is to play on the football field, has earned his. Now, Ahmad Miller from Jackson State hasn't earned his, but I've got one for you. The young guy, Tyreek Hill, who we saw get some burn as a return specialist a bit last year and get some carries there running back, definitely got a lot in the spring game from what I remember. He's earned his orange jersey. So when your young guys are showing that they are emerging in that room, you got something going on. So I anticipate a team that actually is capable of running the football this season. They got some athleticism, some guys who produced at other levels of football, a better offensive line, and again, a position coach that is known for developing talent. I think that's going to be the biggest trend with this year's team, position coaches that are known for developing talent.
All right, let's move on to the phase of the game that's often overlooked, and that's special teams. How concerned are you about the punting and kicking game this year?
When you're on your third special teams coordinator in 3 years, it's something you're not satisfied with, right? Trip Woody wasn't bad last year. There weren't many opportunities for him to kick. At the punter spot, Jimmy Gregg's supposed to be, the best thing since sliced bread coming in as a freshman. So I don't really have concerns. I think the question is going to be who emerges as a return specialist. I don't think the kicking game is going to be the question. I think who actually can flip the field and create plays and make life easier for Steve and that offense, with their ability to run kicks and run punts back. I think that's going to be the question. And can they avoid the mistakes from last year? I mean, there were so many times they were supposed to take fair catches or just let the ball bounce into the end zone that they just make boneheaded mistakes with last season. I'm worried about cleaning that up this year.
Last one for me, Javon, as we wrap things up here. First closed-door scrimmage tomorrow. Based on what you saw in the spring and the depth chart coming out of the spring and what you know about this team, in your mind, what is the most competitive positional battle at the moment, that the coaching staff's trying to figure out over the course of these couple of scrimmages leading into the new season?
Oof, man. I think there are a few, right? I think corners settled. I think we know who the three safeties are going to be. I think we know who the linebackers are going to be. D-line's fine. I think that battle for quarterback 2 is going to be interesting between Amari Odom and Malachi Nelson, right? Because somebody is going to be third on the depth chart and have to think about, are they going to be in Syracuse next year? In all likelihood, Steve probably test the NFL waters. We'll see how this new 5-and-5 rule affects everything. And whoever wins QB2 is going to have the inside track to be in the starter next year, right? So whoever ends up as QB3 is going to have some decisions to make in terms of, do I think when I come back next year I can overtake the starting job, or do I look somewhere else? I think just the biggest individual stakes are at backup quarterback right now. But I don't think running back is a sealed deal at the moment. You know, who's going to be your bell cow if there is one? You know, who's going to be the one you put in when you absolutely need a 6 or 7 yard gain? I think that's up in the air. And then that receivers room is so talented, Steve. I mean, they are fighting for snaps out there. There's going to be some guys who can play some football that just are not going to see a lot of game time this year because that room is so deep. So that's the one I'm the most fascinated by.
Again, the over-under with SU football, 4.5 wins. I think you and I both think over.
I said 5.
Right. You're not sure they're getting to a bowl game,
Yeah.
though. I'm not sure they're getting to a bowl game. I'm going to predict it. I think they get to 6 wins. I do believe in Fran. But I'm certainly taking the over. I think they find a way to get more than 4.5.
Like we said earlier, Steve, and we say all the time, is that Cal game and that Pitt game. If you don't win either one of those, you're probably not going to a bowl game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talk about being behind the 8 ball.
Mm-hmm.
They got to win one of those to be on pace, because if they lose them both, they're certainly going to be behind the 8 ball here early in the season. We did talk some baseball on the show today as well. We had Emmanuel Berbari on with us, Yankees pre- and post-game host on WFAN. Yankees are playing pretty good baseball. They just can't make up any ground on the Rays, who are 6.5 up, and Tampa just keeps on winning, and Yankees are running out of time to get back into it in the division. So I led off Emmanuel by asking him if it's time for Yankee fans to start focusing on the wild card. Is the division out of reach for this team?
I would never give up hope as a fan, but the math is challenging. Like, I'm a math guy, and you look at what they need to make up, and also the fact that the Rays are likely to have a tiebreak when it's all said and done. You know, the Yankees, interesting listening to Aaron Boone yesterday. They're 18-11 in the last 29 games. Doesn't feel that way with the type of game they've been playing. All these narrow, close games, elite pitching. The offense has been very inconsistent. More often than not, you're not getting offensive production. But they're 18-11 in the last 29. In theory, that's baseball that should be having you making up significant ground, not just ground, but significant ground. The Rays have simply been playing better. And it's interesting, the two teams, the Yankees, are sandwiched between the Rays and the Red Sox. The Red Sox rattle off 15 in a row. They rattle off 27 out of 30, 32 out of 37. Then they go on a mini losing streak. But as they're going on a losing streak, the Rays rattle off a perfect West Coast trip 9-0. It's just unbelievable what you're watching in this division. But the Yankees, it's realistic. Like, they made up 5 games against the Blue Jays last year, and I think the last 11 or 12, they just lost a tiebreak. It's, of course, realistic, but the math just isn't on their side right now.
You talk about the inconsistent offense. I mean, you're spot on there. I mean, even just look at these last 4 games where they lose. The 2 games they lost, they scored 1 run combined. The 2 games they won, they scored 14, right? And you've been seeing that quite a bit where they're up and down. Is there a solution for this inconsistent offense? I guess outside of, Aaron Judge being reinserted to it, what can they do in the meantime?
You know, it's funny. I was about to say the guy wearing number 99 is going to go to the Hall of Fame, and it's the captain. That would help a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's not the excuse that this team will use. Cody Bellinger is going to be back, I think, in pretty short order. I think within the next few days, we'll probably hear about Bellinger going on a rehab assignment. That's not news yet, but he's been feeling great this entire time. It's just about shaking out that last bit of tightness from the hamstring that's going to cost him these 4 to 6 weeks. And then Giancarlo Stanton's sort of the wild card is the way I look at it. You don't expect anything with how long he's been out, but he'll be back. I have no question that Giancarlo Stanton's going to be back at some point this season. So that's a trio of big boppers in the middle of your order, former MVPs, dangerous hitters that the opposing pitcher at least has to think twice about. If they're not producing, that opens up opportunity for the Ben Rices and Trent Grishams of the world to see better pitches. Luis Garcia Jr. is already off to a really nice start as the Yankees since being acquired from the Nationals. Just think what that would look like in terms of pitches to hit when he's not the focus. I mean, it'll still be a focus, of course, but not the focus in the lineup. I think this lineup becomes deeper and more dangerous with those guys back in the fold. In the meantime, Trent Grisham's really gotten going these last few games after being mired in an awful 8-for-80 slump. He's red hot these last few days, despite that pop-up slide that, the Yankees' one threat yesterday was really that Grisham, which should have been the double, and the pop-up slide that cost them. Grisham's going. They need Jazz to get going. In the meantime, until they have these 3 guys back, Jazz Chisholm, by his own admission, he said it himself. I stunk this year, is what he said. and he holds himself to a really high bar and expectation. If they could get like 2 good weeks out of Jazz, we're not asking much, but 2 weeks where he looks like the Jazz from last year, that would do worlds for this team.
All right, since we both brought up the name Aaron Judge, I got to ask you just what the latest is, and I know there's a lot of speculation with that question, but what do you envision happening with him? When do you think we'll see him back in pinstripes?
Yeah, it's been anybody's guess for a while, but at least now we have a concrete update in terms of the imaging starting to show enough healing where he can do that light activity. Remember, with this type of injury, even light upper body stuff could have been an issue in the early stages. You can't just run around recklessly with the rib injury he was dealing with. You can aggravate something else. Judge has to be really careful. Yankees have to be really careful to prevent something not just for this year and costing this year, but long term. And there's a guy who's in his mid-30s now. He's a behemoth. He's a larger-than-life type of figure in more ways than one, physically and in our imaginations, Yankee lore. So I think the Yankees are playing this ultra carefully for good reason. Now he's starting to ramp up. I think the next couple of weeks will be critical, because the calendar, sort of like we're talking about with the games and the standings, the calendar is just not on their side. We're getting into late days of the season, and you need to make sure within these next couple of weeks, this light ramp up turns into more baseball activity. And when does he start consistently swinging a bat? When that happens, I think we're going to be hearing murmurs about a possible rehab assignment, because once Judge can physically be in that Yankee order, they want him in that order, and he wants to be in that order. He hates being out more than anybody, and he sees what's going on around him with this elite pitching staff. He wants to be a part of it. There's a window of opportunity for the Yankees to win. So I think that next step is within the next week or two, hearing another update on, look, he's in the spot he needs to be. Now he can start swinging the bat and doing more baseball activity.
You mentioned the word elite a couple of times here, talking about the pitching staff. It's been fantastic. Starters have been doing their job. The bullpen has been lights out. Last 4 games, 15 1/3 innings pitched, 10 hits, 0 earned runs, 17 Ks. What has stood out to you from this pitching staff as a whole, starters and bullpen? What has stood out to you the most of late?
It always starts with the bedrock of the starting pitching, right? This Yankee team is more predicated on starting pitching than any I can imagine in recent memory. Like, if you married this Yankee starting pitching with some of the offenses that they had, 6-7 years ago, you're talking about a major behemoth in terms of Cole and Fried and Schlittler. Now Rodon rehabbing again, and he'll be back in short order. You dull these guys out in the postseason series, and I'm not trying to leave out, Ryan Weathers, who's been terrific lately, and Will Warren, who's had his ups and downs, but for the most part, that's a solid back end of the rotation arm with strikeout stuff. This starting rotation has been excellent, and the only reason you overlook those last 2 guys in some ways is the fact that in a postseason series, the Fried, Cole, and Schlittler tandem in particular can stack you up with anybody, American League, National League. And the bullpen, which is a major question mark in the middle of the season, it is really rounded into form. It's consistently stayed at that top shelf of ERA in the league. But look at the individuals. Like, Brent Hedrick is having an insane season, not just above expectations. He's been, for my money, a top 5 reliever in the sport. You have David Bednar, who's ascended to that territory after a rocky stretch in May. He has been nails at the back end of games. And then you have guys like Paul Blackburn ascending in the trust tree this year. Guys the Yankees have leaned into and found more with. Tim Hill starting to get going out of that bullpen after a rocky stretch. You trust Fernando Cruz, even though he has those erratic days. This bullpen, despite the first time in a decade at the deadline Yankees didn't add to the bullpen, sort of stunning. It's for a good reason. You're going to have Clark Schmidt out there, Ryan Weathers out there, maybe Will Warren out there down the road. I think this bullpen has enough, and then you're going to add more to it.
Emmanuel, I got 2 more for you. Let's go to the shortstop position next. And watching George Lombard Jr. play, it's he's fun to watch, man. He makes plays in the field. Yeah. It seems hard plays seem effortless. He's been making an impact at the plate and with his speed, and he's been fun to watch. The flip side of it, of course, is that Anthony Volpe is down in the minors, and we all saw the headlines of what he did with the 2 ABS challenges. Both go against him. He ends up striking out. He laughs about it afterwards. What do you think Anthony Volpe's future is in pinstripes? It doesn't seem like he's going to be moved up anytime soon, right? And especially the way Lombard's playing. What do they do with Volpe? It's
an interesting question. I think this could be good for 2 reasons. When you zoom out on on this picture. I also would not rule out with that viral clip you're talking about is something Anthony Volpe was actively working on in the minors, because the ABS challenges have not been a strength for certain guys on this Yankee team. Maybe that's something, I'm just speculating here. Maybe that's something they wanted him to work on when he was down there. So I understand that the clip gives a bad look, but you never know what's going on in those minor league games, whether it be a prospect or a guy that's just gone down in what they're working on. Volpe, he knows how to play second base for years, but it wasn't the necessity for the Yankees for him to play second base. And now he's going to get reps down there. And then Jazz Chisholm, with the future so uncertain, in a walk year, he's had a down season. I could see a world. I'm not saying they're going to hand him the job, but Anthony Volpe is competing for the starting second base job. There comes spring training next year, and there's a guy who's still 25 years old. It's hard to believe because they've seen 4 years of him. At 25 years old, the organization took a big chance on him. Homegrown guy, local guy. I don't think the Yankees are giving up on him with the tools and ability that he has, but it could well be that his best position was always second base, and we'll see whether that plays itself out. But you can't have that happen without these meaningful reps in the minors. And hopefully he can tinker with some stuff offensively. Now he's out of the bright lights and spotlight of every move is scrutinized. You hope, you don't know, but you hope that down there he could figure some stuff out.
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer. That makes a lot of sense. We'll see how that plays out. And then, lastly, we talked about that the division is going to be awfully tough at this point, 6.5 back, and, the math and the way the Rays are playing and so on and so forth. I guess my last question to you, Emmanuel, is if, once they get everybody back, right, and they make the play, right, they're going to make the playoffs. Are they still the favorites in the American League, even if they don't win the division, but they get in as the number one wild card or whatever it is, and they're relatively healthy or pretty close to being healthy? Are they all of a sudden the favorites in the AL?
It's funny. It depends how you look at favorites in this world that we live in. If you look at betting markets, I think if they're healthy, Yankees will be the favorite because they're going to be the best team on paper going into the postseason. And anybody who thinks, they haven't played as well as Tampa Bay, I'm sorry, just look at the roster.
Right,
like if the Yankees are healthy and they run into the postseason with that pitching and those big boppers in the lineup, in the betting markets, they'll probably be favorites. I don't look at the Yankees as a favorite until they go out and beat these teams. Like, they got to finish the season well. I don't think the Yankees would look at it anything other than we got to take care of the business in front of us. And they didn't win the American League last year. That was Toronto the year before they did. So I think, it depends how you look at the word favorite, but you can stack up this Yankee roster with anybody, or it exceeds anybody else if they're right, all healthy, and also playing well at the right time of year. They finished last year, the regular season, 32-12, their final 44 games. It wasn't any run. That was a remarkable run to finish the regular season. Didn't play itself out in the postseason. They need that type of run at the end of this year to make us feel like they're the favorite in the American League.
I do look at the Yankees as the favorites in the American League if and when they are healthy. So if they get in as a wild card, but everybody's healthy and Judge is back, I do think, Paulie, that they'll be the favorites. I certainly agree with Emmanuel. I think they'll be the odds-on favorites. I think they're the best team in the American League when they're healthy. They just got to kind of tread water here, get into the playoffs, and then see what happens from there.
My Dodgers pick at 100% is not looking good right now. They're struggling a little bit.
I think you gave yourself some wiggle room. I think you said 95%.
Yeah, I mean, they've been bad. National Creamsicle Day is all we got today, and you probably don't like those on a stick.
Nah, not on a stick. No, thank you. Yeah, both ways. It's a no-go.
What about like an Orange Julius?
If it's not on a stick.
Like a cup of creamsicle.
Yeah, I could do that. Okay. And I used to like orange sherbet when I was a kid, like out of a bowl or in a cone, but I just can't do sticks.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's one of my quirks.
Enjoy a nice week away from me. You were yelling at me
I'm looking forward
to
it. I'm looking forward to it. So, yes, no show from us next week. It's really our last time off for about 10 months, right? Because it'll be football season, basketball season, lacrosse season. So, Paulie's going to take some time off. We're going to take time off from the show. But we will see you a week from Monday. So enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your week after that. We'll see you a week from Monday, everybody.